That night, I texted him. No reply. The next morning, I texted again. Still nothing. He disappeared. Vanished. No reply to texts. No answer at his apartment. No sight of him at school. At first, I was angry, then hurt, then embarrassed, because I refused to become the girl who begged. So one night, I laughed to myself like I could outrun pain with humor. Look at you, Mari. You came to Japan for an MBA, not to star in your own J-drama. I deleted his number. Ami didn't push. She just sat beside me. Bia cried dramatic tears and tried to distract me with snacks. Ollie cursed Rio's ancestors. Malik started walking me home without asking. Danny stared at my phone and said, "He's not just rich. This is power." I asked, "What do you mean?" Danny's voice was quiet. "I mean, people like him don't disappear unless someone bigger made them." 2 weeks later, a knock came at my hostel door. I opened it. Rio stood there, his eyes tired, his face serious. "Mari, I'm sorry." I stared. He started talking fast. "I had to handle something. I couldn't contact you." I cut him off. "Leave." "Mari, leave." And I slammed the door in his face. My hands were shaking, because part of me wanted to open it again and forgive him immediately. But I didn't come this far to become weak for love. Rio didn't stop. He waited outside my cram school in the rain with an umbrella. He wasn't being dramatic, he was just there. He walked beside me without touching me until I allowed it. He apologized without excuses. He said, "I know you don't owe me forgiveness. I'm still asking." Ami watched him carefully. Malik watched him harder. Danny didn't trust him at all. Bia kept whispering, "This is so romantic," then looking guilty because I wasn't smiling. Ollie muttered, "Rich men always have a reason." But Rio kept showing up like he was willing to suffer for me, and that cracked something in my chest. Finally, I let him talk. Rio confessed the version of the truth he thought was safe. His family wasn't just wealthy, they were powerful. They owned Haruma Corporation, the biggest company in Kyoto. They sent him to university to study management because he'd eventually take over. His mother hated distractions. If she found out he was in a relationship, she would remove him from Kyoto University and send him abroad. He didn't want to be far from me, so he went to beg her to let him stay. "She wants to meet you," he said quietly. My chest loosened, because at least it wasn't about my skin. At least he wasn't ashamed of me. I forgave him. But the air around him felt different, like shadows were standing just out of sight. We started dating again, but the romance got deeper. Not just dates, life. Rio would come to my hostel with groceries because he noticed I was skipping meals. He'd sit beside me while I studied, arms loosely around my waist, chin on my shoulder. When I got stuck, he'd whisper the correct phrase into my ear, and my skin reacted like it recognized him. Sometimes he'd kiss the back of my hand while I wrote notes, like he couldn't help himself. He'd call me Mari like it meant something sacred. And when I teased him, he'd smile like he was starving and I was food. One night I fell asleep studying at his apartment. I woke up in his bed with a blanket tucked around me perfectly. Rio sat on the floor nearby, laptop open, watching me like he was guarding something precious. When I asked, half asleep, "Why aren't you in bed?" he answered softly, "Because you look safe here." My throat tightened, because I didn't know love could look like that. Love? Was I falling in love with him? A few days passed when Rio invited me to a corporate networking event. Just for an hour, he promised. Ami came with me because she didn't trust the vibe. Danny insisted too, because Danny didn't trust anyone. Inside, everything gleamed. Crystal lights, polished smiles, expensive perfume. Men bowed to Rio like he was royalty. Not respect like, oh, he's rich. Respect like obedience. Ami leaned close. This is intense. Danny's eyes narrowed. This is not normal business. Then I saw it. A handshake that lasted too long. A smile that didn't reach the eyes. A man with tattoo ink peeking above his collar. Rio leaned close to my ear. Stay beside me, he murmured. I whispered, why? His voice dropped. Because they'll behave if you are with me. That wasn't romance. That was protection. And protection meant danger. Over the next few days, it became warmer. And then it was spring break. Rio said it was time. I would meet his family. We drove to the Haruma estate. The gate alone was massive. Black metal, security cameras, guards. Then we drove, for 3 minutes, inside their property. 3 minutes from gate to mansion. My throat went dry. This wasn't rich. This was untouchable. Inside, staff moved like ghosts. Our bags disappeared from our hands. Your room is prepared, Haruma-sama. Haruma-sama. Not Rio. Not Kun. Sama. Like worship. Lunch was formal. His mother sat at the head of a long table. His younger sister in college watched me politely. Too politely. His high school brother avoided eye contact like he didn't want to be involved. His middle school sister stared at me like I wasn't real. Rio squeezed my hand under the table once. A quiet plea. Please survive this. That evening, Rio went out with his siblings. His mother asked me to join her for tea. A staff member led me to a private room. She sat across from me while the tea poured like a ritual. And the mask dropped. She placed an envelope on the table. Thick. This is for you, she said calmly. To return to your life. Leave, my son. My chest tightened. I'm not with Rio for money. She smiled slightly. That is what all women say. I care about him. You do not understand, she said softly. My son is not a boy who can choose freely. I'm not leaving him. Her eyes sharpened, then her voice lowered. If you stay, you become a weakness. My heart pounded. You are foreign, she said. Black. Visible. The words hit like cold water. You will draw eyes, she continued. And eyes can be dangerous. I forced my breath to stay steady. Are you threatening me? Her calm didn't change. I am warning you. Then she said the part that froze my blood. You will leave Kyoto. Not or else. Just, you will. I stood up slowly. My voice shook, but I didn't let it crack. I'm not afraid of you. Her smile returned, thin. You should be. I walked out trembling. And I didn't tell Rio. Because I knew if I did, he would fight his mother. And in that house, I wasn't sure fighting her was survivable. That night, I found out how serious his mother's threat was. The truth about Haruma Corporation. But it didn't come from Rio. It came from a mistake. That night, I got lost trying to find the bathroom. I wandered into a hallway I shouldn't have. The air changed. 2 men in black stood there, still, silent, not staff. Weapons dressed as people. I apologized and backed away. Then I saw an open door. Inside, men gathered around a low table. Paperwork spread out. I didn't understand everything, but I recognized one word. Kumi. A syndicate. Then I saw something worse. A tattoo. Traditional, full-body style ink. Bold, crawling across a man's back. Not fashion. Identity. Yakuza. My blood turned to ice. I backed away silently and returned to my room, shaking. That night I searched quietly. Not public sites. Whispers. Old rumors. Local forums. And one name kept appearing. Haruma. Not just a corporation. A family. A shadow. A power. Yakuza. I stared at my phone. Rio texted, "Are you okay?" I typed back, "Yes," and I hated myself for lying. Back in the city, things shifted. A black car appeared outside my hostel too often. Men, coincidentally, stood near my usual routes. Ami noticed. Malik noticed harder. Danny started taking photos of license plates. Ollie started writing down dates and times like he was building evidence. Bia stopped joking. Then one night after cram school, my phone buzzed from an unknown number. "Kyoto is beautiful. Don't ruin it for yourself." A second message. "Stop seeing Haruma-sama." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my phone. I wasn't dating Rio anymore. I was in his world. And his world had teeth. It happened after a late library session. Campus was quiet. I was alone. Two men approached me politely, like violence could wear manners. "One moment," one said. My stomach dropped. My body froze. Then a voice cut through the dark like a blade. "Step away from her." Rio. But he wasn't student Rio. His eyes were cold in a way that made the air heavier. The men backed away immediately. Not because they feared him, because they recognized him. And I realized something that made me sick. Those men weren't random. They were his world. I confronted him in his penthouse. "No more half-truths," I said. "What are you?" Rio's jaw tightened like he was bracing for pain. "My family isn't just powerful," he said quietly. "They're the kind of power people pretend doesn't exist." He swallowed. "Haruma Corporation is a front." My chest tightened. Then he said the word I already knew, but didn't want to hear from his mouth. "Yakuza." I stepped back like the truth had heat. "And you?" I whispered. His eyes softened, devastated. "I'm next." He moved toward me slowly, like he didn't deserve closeness. "I didn't choose it," he said, "but I chose you." My throat tightened, because love sounded beautiful and dangerous, coming from a man like that. That night, Rio held me like he was afraid I'd vanish. He kissed my forehead first, then my cheek, then my lips like he was asking permission with every breath. His hands trembled slightly at my waist. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I wanted you to love me before you feared me." I didn't answer with words. I pulled him closer. For a few hours, the world outside didn't exist. No Haruma name, no mother, no syndicate. Just warmth, just breath. Just the fragile illusion that love could erase bloodlines. After, he rested his forehead against mine and murmured, almost like a confession, "If I had one life that was mine, I'd spend it with you." I wanted to say something brave, but my chest was full of fear, so I said the only honest thing. "And why does it feel like you're saying goodbye?" Rio didn't answer. His silence did. Everything felt different after that night. I saw Rio differently, but somehow the same. It was like he was in a movie, his movements slower, heavier. The way he flicked his hair out of his face, the way he licked his lips absent-mindedly, the way his eyes lit up when he spoke to me. Or maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was me. The way my heart skipped when I looked at him. The way I swallowed like my throat was dry, and he was water. Maybe I was falling for this beautiful danger, and the Jamaican in me liked a challenge. I sat across from him at the table, watching him, shirtless, calm, already imagining a future I had no business thinking about. Mari? I didn't hear him. Mari-chan. Still nothing. Mari-sama. Then I felt it. A soft kiss on my forehead. It snapped me out of thoughts I probably shouldn't have been having. What's that for? I asked, smiling, trying to hide the heat rising in places it shouldn't. I kept calling your name, Rio said. You didn't answer, even though I'm right in front of you. He smirked slightly. That seemed like the only way to get your attention. His eyes softened. And if it makes you smile like that, I might have to do it more often. I laughed, really laughed, and he joined in. For a moment, it felt normal, like we were just us. But normal never lasts long. The days went by slowly until I received a text notification on my phone, a message from Rio's mother to meet with her or else. This time, though, there was no envelope, just a contract with a signature line. Sign, she said softly, and you leave safely. I stared at it. You're making me choose my safety over my love. She tilted her head. No, she said. I'm showing you reality. Then she leaned closer. If Rio chooses you, people will bleed for it. Not him, me, Ami, my friends, the people close enough to punish him through. That's when I understood. This wasn't romance. It was war. A bloody battlefield, and my life was the target. I didn't sign, but I left that room knowing exactly what I had to do. By the time I got back to Rio's penthouse, my hands were steady, but my soul wasn't. I'd learned something you don't forget once you learn it. Fear can dress itself up like politeness. His mother's voice still echoed in my head. Calm, controlled, almost kind, like she was offering me mercy. And the worst part? I knew she wasn't bluffing. I didn't tell Rio what happened. Not because I wanted to protect him from the truth, but because the truth would make him do something he couldn't undo. Rio was the type of man who would burn the world down if he thought it would keep me warm. And in his world, fire spreads fast. When the door opened, he didn't ask what was wrong. He just looked at my face, and his expression tightened like he'd already heard the bad news. He pulled me into his arms so quickly I barely had time to breathe, like he could hide me inside his chest. Like if he held me hard enough, his family couldn't reach me. For a long moment, we stood there in silence. Kyoto glittered outside his windows like a city that didn't know what it was built on. Then Rio spoke, quiet and deadly calm. Someone talked to you. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. My throat felt too small for the truth. He touched my cheek gently, thumb brushing under my eye like he was checking for tears I refused to show. Say it, he whispered. What did she say? I forced a smile that didn't belong on my face. Nothing, I lied. It's just a lot. Rio's jaw flexed. He didn't believe me, but he also didn't push. Because Rio Haruma had a strange kind of tenderness, the kind that knew when a person was bleeding internally. That night, he tried to make normal happen. He cooked. Badly. He didn't need to. There were 100 ways he could have gotten food without lifting a finger. But he did it anyway, rolling his sleeves up, trying, failing, swearing under his breath when something almost burned. I laughed, even though my chest hurt. And Rio looked at me like the sound was oxygen, like he'd been starving for it. Later, I sat at his desk pretending to study. My notebook was open. My pen was in my hand, but the words weren't entering my brain. Rio sat behind me like he always did, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. Except this time, his grip was tighter. Not possessive, terrified, like he was trying to keep time from taking me. He kissed my shoulder slowly, then whispered, "Tell me you're not leaving." I froze, because he said it like he already knew the answer. I swallowed. I couldn't lie again. So I gave him the closest thing to the truth that wouldn't destroy him. "I wish this was enough," I murmured. Rio went still. His arms tightened once, just once, like his body reacted before his pride could. Then his voice cracked, barely. "We can run." I turned in his arms and looked at him. He was serious. Not fantasy serious, desperate serious. "We can disappear," he said. "I'll leave everything. School, Kyoto, the company, all of it." My heart clenched so hard it felt like a bruise, because in that moment, Rio looked so young. Not the untouchable campus legend, not the heir, just a man begging for a life that belonged to him. I lifted my hand and touched his face gently, and I whispered the truth he didn't want. "Even if you run, the shadow will follow." Rio's eyes closed, like the words hurt physically, and I realized something that made me feel sick with love. Rio wasn't dangerous because he wanted to be. Rio was dangerous because his name came with a cage, and he'd been trapped long before he met me. That night, we didn't talk much after that. We just held each other, like two people standing on the edge of something they couldn't stop. And when he finally fell asleep, his arms still around me, I stared up at the ceiling and made a decision I didn't want to make. Not because I didn't love him, but because I did. The next morning, Rio kissed me before I left. Not playful, not teasing. It was gentle and careful, like he was trying to memorize me in case the world stole me. "Text me when you get home," he said. I nodded. I walked out of his apartment like my legs belonged to someone else. Every step felt like betrayal. On the train ride back, I watched Kyoto slide past the window. Quiet streets, clean platforms, students laughing like danger didn't exist. And my phone buzzed once. Unknown number, one line. "Kyoto is beautiful. Don't ruin it for yourself." The same words again, like a signature. That was when I knew this wasn't just about me and Rio anymore. It was about everyone close enough to get hurt because I loved him. Ami, my friends, even strangers who helped me. Rio's mother wasn't just warning me, she was measuring how long I would resist. So I chose the only kind of love that could survive his world, the kind that walks away. I asked Rio to meet me by the river under the cherry blossoms, because if I had to break my own heart, I wanted Kyoto to at least look beautiful while it happened. When he arrived, he looked hopeful. He smiled like he'd convinced himself the worst had passed, and that smile almost destroyed me. Kyoto looked like a painting. Soft petals falling, water moving slow, sunlight gentle. But my chest was a storm. "I can't do this," I said. Rio's smile faded instantly. "What?" "I can't be your girlfriend." Rio blinked like language stopped working. "Mari, what happened? Did someone say something?" His eyes searched my face like he was trying to find the truth behind my words. I thought about the men in black. I thought about Ami's quiet loyalty. I thought about Malik walking me home without asking. Danny taking photos of license plates like she could outsmart fear. Bia's laughter that had gone quiet. Ollie's jokes that were starting to sound like prayers. People who didn't ask for this. People I loved. So I did the cruelest thing I've ever done in my life. I lied. I don't love you the way you love me. The words tasted like poison. Rio stared at me like I'd stabbed him. He stepped closer, voice low and shaking. That's not true. I forced my face to stay still, because if he saw my pain, he'd know I was lying. And if he knew I was lying, he would fight. He would burn his world down. And his world would burn me too. I'm sorry, I whispered. Rio grabbed my hand like he could anchor me to him. His fingers were warm, familiar. For 1 second, my body begged me to stay, but my mind screamed, if you stay, someone pays. I pulled away. Rio's voice broke. Please. That one word nearly made me fall apart, but I turned anyway. I walked away before my weakness could betray me. I didn't look back, because I knew if I did, I would run back to him. And if I ran back to him, I don't know what they would have done. After I left Rio, the messages stopped. The black car disappeared. The shadows let go of me like I'd been removed from the equation. And that's how I knew it was real. Because threats don't vanish unless the person making them is satisfied. Time passed the way it always does after tragedy. Quietly, then all at once. Rio left for the States without warning. No goodbye, no explanation. People talked, wondered. I didn't. I told myself I was glad he was gone, because if he stayed, my heart would have searched for him everywhere. Every hallway, every classroom, every place we once existed together. My friends didn't ask questions. They understood. And for that, I was grateful. So I kept myself busy, studying, working, surrounding myself with noise, anything to drown out the silence he left behind. Then suddenly, it was over. I graduated, I worked, I built a life without danger. Ami hugged me so tight at graduation I thought my ribs would crack. She didn't ask questions that day. She just said, "You did your best." Danny looked at me like she was reading a report. Then she nodded once. "You chose survival." Malik's goodbye was simple. He pressed a hand to my shoulder and said quietly, "You're safe now." Like safety was something you could bless into existence. Bia cried openly, shoved snacks into my hands like food could fill the empty spaces. Ollie tried to joke. "If he ever shows up again, I'm punching him." Then his voice softened. "But I hope he does." I never dated anyone seriously after that. Not because I couldn't, but because no one else felt like Kyoto spring. Beautiful and dangerous. And sometimes, in quiet moments, I'd remember Rio whispering my name like it was a prayer. Rio watching me sleep like he was guarding something sacred. Rio's hands trembling slightly when he held me, not because he didn't want me, but because he wanted me too much for it to be safe. And I'd wonder where love goes when it's forced underground. Does it die? Or does it wait? Years later, business brought me back to Kyoto. Conference, meetings, networking. A life that looked full, but never felt complete. One evening, without thinking, I walked alone down a familiar street. Lanterns glowing, wind soft, cherry blossoms falling like snow. Then I heard a voice behind me, low, familiar. "Mari?" I turned, slowly, like my body already knew what my heart wasn't ready to face. And there he was, Rio Haruma. Older, sharper, more composed than I remembered. But his eyes hadn't changed at all. They held everything he never said. Regret, love, a sadness that had been waiting all this time. We stood there, staring at each other, like the years between us didn't know where to go. The city moved around us, but time felt suspended, like the world forgot how to breathe. Rio took one slow step forward, careful, like I might disappear if he moved too quickly. My chest tightened as I said his name, barely above a whisper. Rio. His breath caught, sharp and uneven, like he had been waiting years just to hear that sound again. We stood close enough to feel the distance, but neither of us dared to close it. We didn't touch. We didn't speak. Because some moments carry too much weight for words, and some love doesn't end. It waits.